And we are back on Capitol tonight. This second round of contract talks between PEF and the Cuomo administration does not really seem to be making much progress. However, thousands of workers whose jobs are on the line are waiting for an update, and they are growing more concerned. Those same concerns about job security may also be popping up among a very different set of workers, those on Wall Street, if Comptroller Tom DiNapoli's predictions are correct. And all of that makes for a rather gloomy outlook for New York. And joining me now to break it all down, I hope they brought the happy pills, are the insiders. They are seasoned veterans of state politics who offer up their knowledge and analysis each week. Here with me this evening is former state GOP Executive Director Brendan Quinn. He now works as a private consultant. And across the table, we have Steve Greenberg, who also worked for 2 Assembly Speakers. Yes?
Yes.
He is now the president of Greenberg Public Relations and a pollster for Siena College. Gentlemen, thank you very much.
Great to be here.
Thank you very much for being here, Brendan. No, seriously, it's a little bit of a bummer, this news. I don't even know where to start. We have 3,500 PEF layoffs on the line, and we have up to 10,000 financial sector jobs that could be gone by the end of 2012, although that's a conservative estimate by the comptroller. You want to say something happy?
Well, isn't it over 1,000 or 1,500 of those workers are in the Albany area, the capital region? So the capital region is going to have a greater impact by those people being laid off. But the governor stuck to his guns and said this is what the deal was going to be. He did it with CSEA. They passed it. PEF went through and they had a fair vote and they voted it down. This is the consequences. The governor said he was going to follow through with this.
So the Post actually says, why are you bothering talking at all, Governor Cuomo? Just stick with your guns and to your guns and lay off these people and be done with it and move on already. PEF made its bed and should go to sleep in it. Do you agree with that?
Well, the governor said as long as it's revenue neutral, you're not changing the parameters of the deal financially. If you want to find another way to come back to the same dollar amount, I'll give you that opportunity. That's a very narrow window, and I don't think that's possible, and that's why I don't think you're seeing any movement from the PEF side.
Steve?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think the governor has a choice here. He said that, well, first of all, let's go back a little bit. In the budget, there are workforce savings that are supposed to be built into this year's state budget. Even if PEF approved the contract, there still has to be more savings gotten out of the state workforce. We have CSEA approved, we have PEF now not. I don't think the governor has a choice but to do the layoffs or to try and renegotiate, which he's apparently talking to them, as Brendan says, revenue neutral, and I don't think the governor has a choice because if he does something better for them now, CSEA will go ballistic, and rightly so.
Right, and not even just CSEA is the problem, but as we've mentioned here, you've got Council 82 is still out there, UUP. I mean, there are other people for which an example was supposed to be set by PEF and CSEA. Now PEF is the fly in the ointment. But just to get back, don't you think that these folks are well aware of this fact, that actually the $450 million worth of workforce savings that was in the budget is not to be realized, even with these contract agreements, had PEF agreed just like CSEA did, and that's what they're worried about because they want some more protections against layoffs coming down the road from consolidation, government consolidation, and they're not going to get it. I mean, isn't that what this is about? They see you're supposed to have $450 million, even if we have a contract deal that we agree to that we don't like for 5 years and furloughs and et cetera and pay freezes. There's still something missing there, and it's going to come out of our hides. So why should we say yes? Because we know it's going to be worse than you say it's going to be.
That's probably a piece of it, although I think the bigger issue in terms of PEF voting it down was the fact that the members who don't get fired work out better in the short term financially for themselves and their families by not having a contract than approving that contract.
Because of Triborough, yes.
Exactly.
Yep. I mean, the problem is as long as this sort of gray period goes on that we're in right now, it looks bad for the governor, right? The longer it goes on, he looks a little bit weak. Is that not, do you not agree?
Forget the parameters of the financial deal. This is about Andrew Cuomo and his credibility. He stated his position.
Yeah.
He stated, this is what I'm going to do, and if you don't vote for this, I'm going to lay you off. And it's very cut and dry, and that's why the New York Post was saying, stick to your guns. And it's not just about these negotiations, it's about everything going forward. You have the hydrofracking issue and other major issues, casino gambling and other things that have a major financial impact in New York State, that if he doesn't have credibility, he goes in to negotiate these deals, and he can't go in there and have a good faith effort because if people don't believe him, that's going to be a real problem for him in the next 2 years.
Right, yeah.
Well, I think that's exactly right. I mean, I think the governor's credibility is on the line. I don't think the governor's being hurt politically right now
No.
by what's going on.
No.
I think the public, while they're sympathetic, nobody wants to see anybody laid off in this economic climate that we're in. But I think the public looks at state workers generally, particularly those who don't know a state worker, and say, yeah, we have too much state government. The governor's doing the right thing. And I think the governor has no choice but to continue down
See,
this path.
You bring up a very interesting point, which is the perception versus the reality, which is something that I think Bloomberg has tried to get through on the Occupy Wall Street protest, which is going on. And I know you were actually down there and you have some pretty pointed views about it. However, Mayor Bloomberg would say, you know, you guys, Wall Street is a major financial engine, and the average salary on Wall Street, although they skew fairly high, you've got some low-end folks down there too, right, who are working in the financial sector. This is the engine. Don't kill them. 10,000 jobs by the end of 2012, if DiNapoli is right, and let's hope that he's being overly conservative. That's bad for New York.
It's bad for New York, and if it's only 10,000 jobs, it may be the best news, because if the downturn continues, you could see more people being laid off or not,
Yeah.
new hires being made next year, and the continued unemployment rate staying at 9% or higher. And if you go down there and look, and I was down there in other business and walked past the park, and I actually was in the deli right next door, and the owner of the deli, as I was waiting in line to buy my stuff, was complaining to me how it's cost him $700 to repair his bathroom because all these people come in there and have done all this damage. And you go out and look at these kids, and most of them are kids, and college age or just out of college, playing on their iPad, playing with their iPhone, playing these video games, and it doesn't seem to be real organized. I'm not sure what the purpose is, but I would bet if you really interviewed these people, mommy and daddy's probably paying for most of their housing, their allowance, and that's how they have the luxury of sitting down there for weeks at a time.
Well, to be fair, I mean, that might be the folks who are there staying there and sleeping there. There are people who have jobs, who are coming after work, who are coming on their lunch hour, who are protesting. I mean, in terms of demands that these protesters are making, isn't that a problem? Because since there aren't any clear demands, there's no clear end in sight. You can't meet demands for folks and then ask them to go away if there aren't any demands to meet.
Well, not only are there no demands, there's no real leadership. I mean, it's not like this is an organized effort. It's a very disorganized but very intense effort.
Oh, yeah.
And there are people there for a lot of different reasons. I mean, I've seen the interviews where, some people talking about Wall Street and the banks, and they got all the bailouts and nobody else did. But then there are people there. There are a lot of college kids from CUNY there talking about more money has to be invested in public higher education. There's a whole variety of different reasons that people are down there. But I think what we're seeing is the reflection of anger 3 years into this recession. People feel it in a lot of different ways.
And it puts folks in a difficult position. I mean, tonight there's this presidential debate, Republican, another one. I don't even know what we're on yet. 4?
This is 4 or 5.
4, okay. And we see today some developments. Chris Christie not running, endorsing Mitt Romney. We see Rudy Giuliani finally saying he's not going to run, I think is a surprise.
Shocking.
To no one. The way that this is coming down, it sort of is like the party against Wall Street versus the party for Wall Street. Herman Cain has said some pretty sharp stuff.
He said some very sharp things about the people protesting on Wall Street, but following your point, Steve, there's a lot of anger. There's a lot of anger on both sides. If you go through and look at the Tea Party people over the last year and a half, the people that were out there protesting over Obamacare 2 years ago, there's a dissatisfaction, an unhappiness with government, an unhappiness with the overall taxation that's happening, that the size of government spending is too high. And if you go back to the point earlier, if you look at right around Albany, the greater number of employees, there's a greater sensitivity. The further away you go from Albany, the
Absolutely.
greater hatred of Albany there is. Look at polls that you have done in Western New York or other places, and look at, you go out in Western New York. They hate Albany, they hate downstate, they hate government, they hate Washington.
They love the Bills, though.
And they love the Bills because, unfortunately, they're having a good season for once. It's been a while.
Easy. I don't want to get in trouble with anyone out there. I don't watch football. I'm totally neutral. So I just want to, before we end, and we're going to end on you, do you think that this latest Mitt Romney surge is going to stick? You do believe that this is it for the Republicans? Romney's the guy.
I think Romney's going to be the nominee. I think you'll see him continue to do well. He has done well in the previous debates, and really the focus is going to be on Rick Perry tonight, because his first 3 debates have not been that good, and he needs to have a outstanding performance to stay alive.
Yeah, and Herman Cain, who is surging in the polls, has said that he's not even going to bother with Perry tonight. He's going to go right after Romney. He's going to try and make it into a 2-man race.
Yeah, I mean, I think the conventional wisdom, you're right, Brendan, which is why I got to believe that's not what's going to happen. Just because there's got to be a couple more twists and turns in the road between now and the beginning of January, when the actual voting process begins.
Okay, and we will obviously discuss them. In the meantime, we are out of time. Steve Greenberg, thank you. Brendan Quinn, thank you. We will not blame you for whatever happens. Whatever twists, not your fault.
I'm in favor of the bills. How's that?
That's good.